My name is Elias Byler. I have kept barn cats on this farm my whole life, same as my father did, same as his father did before him. Right now I have 8 of them working the barn and the corn crib, and most mornings I can find every one of them by the time I finish the milking, sunning themselves on the same fence rail, same order, same spots, like they drew lots for it years ago. We never named most of them. We never took them to a vet unless something was really wrong. And for 200 years, give or take, our cats lived long lives and died of old age more often than not. Meanwhile, 20 minutes down the road in town, house cats with soft beds and store-bought food were dying young of a heart disease nobody could explain. I did not understand why for a long time. I want to tell you the real reason, and I want to tell you the part where I almost got it wrong myself, because that is the part that matters most. It was the winter of a bad year on this farm. Feed was short, money was shorter. I had 6 barn cats that winter, and I decided I would be generous with them in the only way I knew how. Every night I took the bones and the scraps from our supper, the ends of the roast, the necks, the fat trimmings, and I boiled them down into a soup. A big pot of it, meat and broth together, poured out steaming into their dishes behind the milk house. I thought I was doing something kind. I thought a full belly of boiled meat was better than dry kibble any day. By late January, one of my best mousers, a gray and white barn cat we called Belle, started acting strange. She stopped climbing. She sat low to the ground with her mouth open, breathing hard, like she had run a long way when she had not moved from the hay bale in an hour. Her gums looked pale. I carried her to the vet in town, thinking she had gotten into something poisonous, a mouse that had eaten bait, maybe. The vet listened to her chest for a long minute. He said her heart muscle had gotten thin and weak and stretched out like a rubber band pulled too many times. He said the word cardiomyopathy, and I did not know what it meant, and I did not much care what it meant. I only cared that my cat was dying, and I did not know why. Quick word before I go further. The old methods my family uses, there is more of it than fits in any one video. I gathered the whole of it into a book you can buy in our pinned comment below. The book is the long version. If you want it, it is there. I will not mention it again. The vet asked me one question that changed how I have fed every animal on this farm since. He asked what I had been feeding her. I told him about the soup, proud of it, the boiled meat and broth every night. He shook his head slow. He told me boiling meat, cooking it down hard the way I had, destroys something called taurine, an amino acid that a cat's body cannot make enough of on its own. A cat has to get it from what she eats, and she has to get it mostly whole and raw or lightly cooked, not simmered down to nothing in a pot for 2 hours. Belle was not poisoned. She was starving for one single nutrient while eating a full bowl every night. That is the part that still gets me. You can feed an animal until the dish is empty and still be killing it slow if the one thing it needs most is not in there. The vet put her on a taurine supplement, a small tub of powder you sprinkle over food. And within about 6 weeks, her breathing came back to normal, and she was back on the hay bale watching for mice. It took closer to 4 months before her heart fully strengthened back up on the follow-up exam. She lived to be 15. I mentioned what happened to a few neighboring families that spring, other farms with barn cats of their own, and not one of them had a story like mine. Every single one fed scraps raw or close to it, the way it had always been done. And not one of them had ever lost a cat to a weak heart at a young age. I had been the only one clever enough to boil the goodness right out of my own kindness. So why is it that Belle nearly died from my own kindness, while a barn cat catching her own mice and eating scraps raw never had that problem and never has, going back as far as anyone in my family can remember? Here is what I did not know that winter, and what most of the country did not know until surprisingly recent. Cats are what folks call obligate carnivores. That is a fancy way of saying their whole body is built to run on meat and only meat. A cow can live on grass. A pig can live on scraps and grain. A cat cannot. Deep in a cat's chemistry, there is a nutrient called taurine that her body barely makes on its own, hardly any at all, and she has to get nearly all of it from animal tissue, not vegetables, not grain, meat, and specifically the organs and the dark muscle, heart and liver most of all. A mouse is loaded with it. A bird is loaded with it. This is not something Amish farmers figured out in a laboratory. We never went looking for it. Our cats simply live the way cats are built to live, hunting, eating scraps close to raw, and the taurine took care of itself because it was never cooked out or left out in the first place. Now here is where the real story gets uncomfortable. And it is not really about the Amish at all. Back in the 1970s and into the 80s, when dry cat food and canned cat food were becoming the normal way most Americans fed their cats, the companies making that food did not know cats needed dietary taurine the way they do. Nobody had proven it yet. A lot of that early food was heavily processed, cooked at high heat during manufacturing, which breaks taurine down the same way my soup pot did, and some of it leaned hard on plant protein because plant protein was cheaper than meat. Across the country, veterinarians started seeing more and more cats, mostly indoor cats eating nothing but that manufactured food, coming in with weak, stretched out hearts. Nobody could explain why at first. It took a group of researchers, a doctor named Paul Pion working out of the University of California, Davis, running the numbers on this for years before they proved the connection and published it plainly in 1987 in the journal Science, so every vet in the country could read it. Low taurine in the blood, failing hearts, a straight line between the two. Once that paper came out, the whole pet food industry changed almost overnight. Every major company added taurine back into their formulas. State agriculture boards started requiring minimum taurine levels in any food labeled complete and balanced for cats. And here's the number that ought to stop you for a second. Before that fix, dilated cardiomyopathy from taurine deficiency was one of the most common heart diseases killing cats in America. After the fix, it became rare, not because cats changed, because the bag changed. Some estimates from that era put dilated cardiomyopathy as the cause behind roughly 1 in 10 cases of heart disease vets were seeing in cats, which sounds almost unbelievable now, given how rarely a vet diagnoses it today for that specific reason. It is one of the few times in veterinary medicine where a disease that common simply stopped showing up in any real numbers within a few years of the cause being found, because the fix was so cheap and so easy to add at the factory level, a few cents worth of powder and a 50-pound batch of kibble, that there was no reason for any company not to do it. I want to be straight with you here, because I think most of these videos leave out the part that would make you trust them less, and I think that is backward. I am not telling you Amish barn cats never get sick, and I am not telling you this fixes every kind of heart trouble a cat can have. There is another heart disease, hypertrophic cardiomyopathy, that is far more common in cats today than the taurine kind ever was, and it is mostly genetic, passed down bloodline to bloodline, and no diet on earth prevents it. What I am telling you is narrower than that and truer for it. The specific heart failure that was quietly killing house cats by the thousands 40 years ago was a man-made problem caused by man-made food, and it was almost entirely preventable by doing what my grandfather did without ever knowing the chemistry behind it. So let me give you what actually matters out of all this. The part you can use tonight, whether you keep a barn cat or a city cat in a 2-room apartment. First thing, and this is the easy one, go look at your cat's food bag or can right now. Any real commercial cat food made in this country since the late 80s is required to have taurine added. So if you are feeding a normal bag of cat food from the pet store, you are almost certainly fine. And I do not want you throwing out a good bag of food over this. Where the danger still lives today is in 3 narrower places. Home-cooked diets, where a well-meaning owner is making food from scratch without knowing to add a taurine supplement back in. Fully vegetarian or vegan cat food, which some owners choose for their own reasons, and which simply cannot supply what an obligate carnivore's body needs, no matter how it is fortified, because the science on that is still thin. And boiling meat down hard as the only preparation, the same mistake I made with Belle, whether that is broth, bone soup, or a long simmered stew fed as a whole meal instead of a treat. One more place worth a second look since it catches people off guard. Freeze-dried or jerky-style cat treats have gotten popular the last several years, single-ingredient chicken or fish. And most of them are fine, but if you are feeding a lot of them, more than an occasional treat, check that one too, since treats are not always held to the same complete and balanced standard as the main food, and are not meant to be a meal on their own. Second thing, if you do cook for your cat, even sometimes, keep a small tub of taurine powder in the cabinet. It runs about $8 to $12 at any pet store or online, lasts months. And you sprinkle a scoop over home-cooked meals the same way the vet had me do for Belle. Cheap insurance for an expensive organ. Third thing, and this one is closer to how we actually live out here. If your cat has any safe way to hunt, a screened porch, a farm, a rural yard, let her. A mouse or a bird she catches and eats herself is about as taurine-rich a meal as exists. I will tell you plainly, there is a trade-off here. because outdoor hunting also brings some risk of parasites and disease. So this is not free advice without a cost. And if that trade-off does not suit your situation, a good quality commercial food with taurine already in it does the job just as well without the risk. I am not telling you to throw your indoor cat out the door. I am telling you why the cats that always could hunt never had this particular problem in the first place. Fourth thing, and this is the one I wish I had known that winter, watch for the warning signs. Breathing that looks like hard work, mouth open, sides heaving even at rest. Lethargy that goes past a normal cat nap, a cat that will not get up for food. Weakness, especially in the back legs, sometimes sudden, which can mean a blood clot, which is a true emergency. Get to a vet that hour. Do not wait until morning. Gums that look pale or grayish instead of healthy pink. Any one of those, get her seen. A basic exam and blood work runs somewhere around $150 to $250 most places. If it turns into a full cardiology workup with an echocardiogram, you could be looking at $300 to $600 more. Compare that to an $8 tub of taurine powder or a bag of food that already has it, and you will understand why I do not think of this as a small thing. Fifth thing, and this one is easy to miss because it does not look like a heart problem at all. Taurine also protects a cat's eyesight, and kittens and nursing mother cats need more of it than a grown cat resting in the sun. Back before the fix in the 80s, vets were seeing young cats going blind from taurine deficiency around the same time they were seeing hearts fail, because it is the same missing piece causing both. If you are raising kittens or have a nursing mother cat on anything other than a normal commercial food, that is exactly the situation where a taurine supplement earns its $8 twice over. Sixth thing, plain and simple. If your cat is getting up in years past 8 or 9, get her a wellness exam once a year, even if nothing looks wrong. A vet listening with a stethoscope can often catch a heart murmur long before you would ever notice a symptom at home, and catching it early changes everything about how it plays out. I think about Belle most winters when I am cutting up scraps for the barn cats we have now. We never fixed the cat, we fixed what went into her bowl. That turned out to be the whole trick behind most of the sickness I have seen on this farm, animal or otherwise. Not a miracle cure, not a secret the English kept from us. Just paying close attention to what actually goes in and trusting that the body does the rest if you give it what it was built to run on. My grandfather could not have told you the word taurine if his life depended on it. He just knew a cat that hunted her own supper stayed healthier than one that did not, and he never asked why, because the results were sitting right there in the barn every morning, healthy and hunting mice at 19 years old. He used to say a farm teaches you more by watching than by reading, and I have come to think he was right about that, even about things he never had a name for. The English needed a laboratory and a published paper in 1987 to prove what he already knew from 80 years of watching cats work a barn. Here is what I want you to do tonight, not next week. Go check the bag of food your cat eats. Find the word taurine on the label. If it is there, you can rest easy on this particular worry. If you cannot find it, especially if you are cooking at home or feeding something unusual, that is worth a call to your vet this week, not a month from now. Tell me in the comments how old your cat is and whether you found taurine on the bag. I read every one of them, and I want to know how many of you go looking tonight. Next time, I want to show you what my grandmother used to mix into the scrap bowl once a week, a spoonful of chopped liver, and why that one small habit did more for the health of our barn cats over the years than anything a vet ever gave them. Until then, keep your animals fed right, and remember that most of what looks like bad luck is really just something small, sitting quiet in the bowl, waiting for somebody to notice it.